She called them. So
We're doing pretty good, actually.
she just texted me a while ago and said she was at WSU.
And we're live.
Okay, thanks.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Make it a roll call.
Yes. Dr. Robinson,
Here.
Trustee Giroux,
Here.
Trustee St. Germain,
Here.
Trustee Erbst,
Here.
Trustee Pomponio.
She's. It's up to you.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, she's here. She's just not here.
Got it.
Okay.
Hey, Jessica, if anybody comes in, just send them on back, even though we have the door closed, just to prevent the echo.
Okay, no problem.
All right, thanks.
And I see the flag is actually behind us.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm standing right there. I need a minute.
Everybody see that?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Any additions or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And any board comments or public input?
So this will be, we'll just start the
Yep.
hearing at this point.
So, yep, we're right into the.
Yep. So do you have a part to go here? It's a good time for to have some discussions. You guys have a chance to look over the budget, all 140 some pages of it. So we've been working on trying to get that narrowed down to where we can do a report, monthly with you guys. And we just had that discussion again this morning. I think we've about got something figured out, but I guess that's one of the discussions we want to have as well after we get done with all this is, what do you want to see monthly? What do you want to see quarterly? What do you want to see? So we can help build those reports. And I know coming in every month, it's just difficult to get that whole big piece. So we want to try to help with that a little bit. So, but that's not why we're here. We're here for the whole budget hearing. So as you guys saw, there's one piece on there that shows it's for the transfer in from general fund of about $214,990 and that is the deficit portion of our budget. So that comes from our general fund carryover to come into equalize everything. So questions on, this is the time to have those discussions. Rowdy crowd.
Well, I'm sorry, I have not
No, it's okay.
had time to do my homework, so
It's
I'm just
okay.
looking and seeing what.
I actually haven't looked at it since we emailed yesterday. Were there any changes?
No, what you have is what we had. Yep.
Okay, so
So
I have
go ahead.
a proposed, okay, 21, 22. Okay, so this one, just the expenditure column must not have just been changed.
What are you looking at proposed?
So this is a summary.
Yes, those are
Okay.
just our major.
So that heading is just not correct. It should be
oh, yeah,
21,
yeah.
22.
Yep, right
Okay.
below it, yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yep, that
all
one is.
Okay.
Yeah, you see it on here. This should be 21, 22. Right down from,
Okay.
it still says
Yeah,
2021.
I have
Yeah,
my one from the system. I didn't print out that one.
okay. Yes, correct. So that shows our last 4 years, basically.
Right, yeah, I'm just digesting this.
So as we, go through last year's budget, which is not, what we're here for today, but we'll show you a little bit of some of those things that were ins and outs and how all that kind of ended up. Of course, when we get through our audit, those type of things as well. So this one was new business manager again, another year, 2 years in a row. So she did a great job of getting through all of that. New HR on the other side, which is challenging as well. That's a big portion of what we're doing. So those numbers all had to kind of come together at one time. And, of course, with negotiations and all that as well. So there was all those pieces that kind of had to come together to get this to happen. So there's a couple things in there that are not in there for next year that you guys need to be aware of as well. Is our ESSER $3 are not in this budget. And we just received notification yesterday that we're receiving those for this next year. And you can maybe explain a little bit more why that's not budgeted in there.
Yeah, so with those new funds that we're getting, they actually cannot be budgeted into our budget at all. It's to be used for things that aren't in our budget specifically. So once we get into this year, I go back and we'll do budget revisions, and then I reflect those balances and I allocate those out to how they'll be spent. So
The SR3 is not the Craig Wyden. It's different.
The ESSER 3 is what would have been the first round of, go ahead with the dollar figure. That's the last one we sent you. It's like 1.8 million or whatever it was.
Yeah,
that we
sorry.
had
So
over
the
2
ESSER
years.
3, they had called that the American Rescue.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Relief
Okay.
or Rescue
Okay.
Plan.
The ARPA money.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
How much is it over the next, how many years?
So this current year, you have the exact numbers.
Yeah, so it will go till September 2024. We've received the first portion that they're giving us. This is 995,762 that we just received.
And that was going to be the cash in the bank that we held for the
Yeah.
Timberline
Yes,
project.
correct.
I get that.
And then the other portion of that, there was the
learning
other
loss.
learning loss piece of it. There was 240.
248,941.
So that was
Is
all
that-
combined.
Is that included in here though? I
No.
was looking at some learning loss stuff in here.
No, that was a different learning loss. There was,
Different, okay.
yep, there was some, basically we called that the governor's learning loss. It was the state fund that came through for learning loss, and we could use that for
Yeah,
curriculum
I saw that.
programs. We use some for summer programs as well. So, and we're looking at doing some more Friday schools.
So is this federal money you're talking about?
Yeah, what she's talking about, the ESSER is the federal money. Yes,
Okay,
Yep.
the learning loss.
it's part of the federal as
Part of
well.
the federal.
So really, there were two pieces to that. There was the learning loss, and there was the other portion she was talking about. 20% had to be allocated to learning loss. And that's got all these
Oh, I see.
definitions of what we can use it for.
I see.
And then the governor,
About that.
basically the state kind of mimicked that, and we ended up with that money first from the governor or from the state, and utilized, and that's in here that we're building into some of the curriculum, those type of things.
I saw that.
So the state revenue is the butts and seats. Is that correct?
It's a piece of it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the federal revenue, what's the source of that?
So the federal, depends on what you're talking about, but if you're looking at like your title funds and all,
Okay.
so all this together is everything rolled together. So you're
Okay.
looking at mostly title programs
Okay.
and lunch program.
Okay.
Is your federal money. So Title I, Title II. So Title I is, we use it for reading and math intervention, the elementaries and high,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
high school, mostly elementaries, depends on the school. Title II is professional development.
One of those funds, IDYCA.
Yeah, that's Title II-D, actually.
1D, yeah.
Yep, does the IDYCA, there's a grant for that, and that's how we pay for, or they pay for, one of,
Teachers?
one of the paras,
Oh.
and then they use it for supplies and material, all their other type of curricular type things as well, and programming, some different programming. And then we don't receive any Title III. Title IV is, drawing a blank here real quick. Oh, it has the safe schools and some of those other things in Title
Oh, yeah,
IV.
the student support.
Yeah, so student support. So we use some of that for technology. We use some of it for safe schools.
The nurse.
Yeah, there's some nurse things in there, also some facts and science supplies are all kind of in that as well. And then that's it, I believe. And then, of course, these other federal funds that, anything that would come in, such as CARES money, those type of things as well, but this is title stuff.
And I'm sorry, the Title II again was,
Professional development.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
I know I've heard it.
Yeah. So we
So-
receive a
So that
state-
makes up the federal funds, and there's actually a drop in that.
Mhm. There were some drops in some of the federal fund areas, and that was based on our numbers as well.
Okay,
So they base them on our enrollment.
okay,
We also, if you look at all of our federal funds, they come not only from enrollment, but also free and reduced.
right, and that was an issue we learned about.
Yep.
Okay,
So it does affect, like the lunch applications we talked about on the E-rate and those type of things, that all has an effect on all of our federal programs. Yep.
and I thought that our enrollment was up.
Our enrollment is not.
We're not, okay, all right.
We're about still maybe 60 below our normal.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I looked at, when we do these, they base them on our February numbers. Is that what we used? Our February enrollment each year. So what our enrollment is in February is what these numbers always get based on for our funding. And as that changes throughout the year, there are some adjustments that can be made, in case you have a huge expansive influx of kids. But yeah, our numbers were down. So yeah, we're usually around 1,040 to 50 overall, and we're about 970 or 80, I think, before we ended the year.
At least it did come up during the year, because I think we were starting the school year at
Mhm.
140,
Yeah.
150 down.
Yes, it did.
But we didn't make it all up.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my brain
No,
around
that's
all
okay.
this.
There's a lot of pieces in it.
And it's pretty messy this year, only
Mhm.
because we had all that influx of money that we didn't budget for to begin with. They were spent, and kind of keeping track of that, but also realizing it can't be part of our budget going forward
Mhm.
because that money's not there. And any
Right.
money they give us cannot be part of the budget going forward.
Right.
They have to be put towards special projects, because the budget has to be something that can be duplicated
Right.
year after year.
Sustainable.
Sustained.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're on a trend of needing less local support, so that's the levy,
The local support is the levy.
okay?
And on a trend of less percentage wise, we've left the levy flat for all these years. As we asked for that, we asked for the same dollar figure, not the same
Right,
percentage.
right, but we're
So-
using,
We're still dependent on it. It's just that we're, as our state income increases, we also, our expenses increase, but our levy is pretty quintessential to all of us, just becoming less percentage of what we're doing overall. So it really kind of tightens us everywhere.
so what I see here is a reduction in federal, a reduction in state, and a reduction in the use of levy.
So the reduction in state is a result of the numbers dropping in federal as well. And then the
Right.
use of levy will continue the same. So that,
Well, it's significantly less than 2 years ago, 1.27 million, and we're only looking at 880,000. So
we're used to the 1.2, yeah.
19 and 20.
Under revenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm focused on revenue.
Right, okay.
Expenditure, I guess, I totally trust that we have wise decision makers, so
So are
am
you
I
looking
looking
at
at
where it
this
says
wrong?
general, and it says the 2,000 or 2 million?
Oh, other
778,
funds.
And then the other is other funds.
Other-
So the general, yes, that general fund, and then our other funds are these special ones. So other funds would consider, it's not listed out here.
Okay, so I should,
have the 880, right?
yep,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, so those, you put those two together to get your total.
Mhm.
so the proposed budget revenue is 2.779 million from local plus the 880.
Right.
805.
Yep, and then,
Okay,
yep,
Okay.
those two put together would be our total.
okay, so so it's flat there, and it was 841, and then, so the year before, 1920, it was 2.708 in local, and then in the other funds, it was 1.272. So that's what I meant, where there's a decrease in this proposed for the other in relationship to local.
It's also based on what we have in our fund balance.
Okay, and I
So,
see that, so
yeah,
our,
yes.
our fund balance,
So as our fund balance would grow a little bit, yes,
Okay.
in all reality, there would be less dependence.
okay.
Yeah,
And the savings came from where to result in $500,000 more in a fund balance this year?
that was last year, and we shut down in March.
Okay, operations,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
So it's solely related to facilities?
Mhm.
Interesting, okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
Well,
you.
and there's more to that because we didn't do any professional development, so we
Mhm.
didn't spend those dollars.
But we did, we spent those in a bonus kind of
No,
scenario,
not
right?
that. I'm talking about
okay.
sending, teachers didn't travel
Oh,
to
okay,
do,
okay,
we didn't do any
Yeah,
travel.
there was no
So
conferences.
yeah.
okay, okay,
if you look at our electric bills, we spend about anywhere from 105 to 150,000 a month on electric bills, and they dropped significantly those
Sure.
months, so there were some savings there. Yes.
okay.
Yep.
I don't mean to be a pain, I'm just trying to understand.
No,
this.
that's
Yeah,
what we're here
yeah,
for.
yeah.
Yep. You have every right to ask.
Cool,
And yeah, typically, having a 60-day fund balance, which is about somewhere around 2.1 million is, is where we try to-
desired is what you
Yes,
shared
yep,
that with me, yeah.
Well, it's actually state law, so.
So what is the total gross revenue that we get from the levy?
2.6,
Yeah, it's
2.65. 2.65. So
And we stash some of that.
no, it goes in the general fund and we spend it. It goes towards lots of different areas. It plugs in a lot of gaps where we're short from the state and federal.
So there's 2.779 and then there's 880. So that's more than 2.65. That's the point of my question there.
Oh, gotcha.
So
there are some other local revenues through grants. So one thing you have to remember is we don't get all of our our tax money at the same time.
correct.
In fact, sometimes we generally get about 95% of it because some people just don't pay.
Sure.
It's typical to budget somewhere between 93 and 95% of that. But we do have other local grants, and these last few years, there are our teachers and other employees do a good job of getting. I think I figured that up one year. I can't remember if it was last year or the year prior. We had like $225,000 worth of other local grants. It was just like people had just written grants. It was pretty cool.
Yep. Okay.
So, and those are hard to budget for because you don't know who's going to do what. So
Yeah.
could be more, could be less.
Yeah. I always give myself $100,000 slush fund, grants in and grants out.
Oh, I thought you were talking about your own account.
No, my economic
Your own
development.
personal account.
No.
Slush fund.
That doesn't reach the six figure. That doesn't reach the six. No, there's no
Slush
60 there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So of the 880, is that in hand or is that projected grants?
The 880 on the 2021
21, 22.
or 21, 22. I think Brittany, right below the 2436 there.
Okay, so you guys are looking at a different one. than I am.
All other funding.
I just
Yeah,
finally
that's
realized
fine.
that as well.
Oh,
So, because I was,
I'm like, I didn't bring
there's,
that
That's
one.
okay.
there's a
This is the
summary
summary.
sheet, but there's also the itemized one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're looking at the summarized
Yep.
sheet, which is good. It just took me a minute to catch
Looking
up.
right here.
oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's all good.
So you're just asking where the 880 comes from?
So the 880, in this discussion,
Mhm.
saying that local is the property tax levy at 2.65 plus other sources. Are those other sources projected grants or are they hard cash in the bank awarded? To make
It's
up
all
the
projected
880?
at this
It's
point.
projected. Okay, thank you. So that's our target.
We can get pretty close overall, but there's some fluctuations, obviously, enrollment will always play a part. If we fill or don't fill a position or whatever it might be. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts to it.
So in my year, I have regular grants that I apply for. We just got a little bit here and we got a little bit there, and that all adds up to that sort of $100,000 slush fund that I create for my budgeting purpose. So, but I see that I mean, we've accounted for all of those and I don't see a miscellaneous grant expenditure. So are we dependent on securing those dollars?
No, those,
Okay.
that 880, I'm not sure where that came from locally. You'll have to,
Honestly, I'd have to go,
yeah,
Is it the bottom line?
I mean, I could definitely get that to you.
I'm not sure.
No,
I-
because the levy's over here on the general and operating fund at 2.7, which is above the 2.6.
So, oh, got it, okay. And that was gonna be one of my questions, is why are we projecting it being less than it happened 2-3 years ago?
So I think a lot of it will like the special, right, funds and stuff. Basically, they give us a calculation of how much they're willing to fund, and then we use their formulas to come up with those. So it's an estimate based on the formulas that they give us as to how much we're gonna receive. So again, it's based on FTE numbers or stuff like that. So it's all a projected balance that we're trying to get as close as possible on.
So they being the State Department of
Mhm.
Ed, or they
Yes,
being
okay.
carry on property taxes?
Both,
Okay.
Both,
Okay.
because property taxes, again, I
right.
mean, we
Right.
are guessing at that because if they go up,
And
we
we
could get more.
should be getting a
bids.
set amount in that from this county,
Right.
from our district or wherever, from local, but it doesn't always work out that way. We don't always get those. That's our max, 2.65 would be our max.
Okay.
So you have to project some losses in that as well. And as we go out and try to sell the levy again to secure that money, I mean, one of the big selling points that we need to talk about is it's going to be a less percentage because of all the valuations of increase. I mean, yes, it's the same dollars, but it's less percentage on the valuation. So
Okay, so, and not to belabor this, but
no,
I just want to be clear,
Should be.
because we're budgeting and people are going to ask, right? So we have the local revenue at 2.779720 in the summary sheet. So on general and maintenance and operating fund. So that is more than the levy.
Right, so we have other taxes that come in on top of that, so that's figuring the levy and all the taxes that come together.
Awesome. So what are those other taxes?
So we.
Do we get part of sales and liquor tax then?
She said she's on, she's just muted.
so she's on here.
She says she's called in.
So for the property taxes, you mean, or?
What for the local revenue? What is the breakdown of what makes up that local revenue?
So we get penalties and interest on taxes, we get,
Okay,
and I'd be more than happy to send you the whole breakdown of, I have a whole spreadsheet of those, of how we break those down. So on the real property, penalties and interest, I'm blanking on what the other ones are, but yeah.
so do we get a portion of sales tax? Okay,
I don't know.
You mean sales tax on,
you just said there were other taxes.
right,
Other
Yeah,
than
but there'd be no
above and
sales
beyond the
tax on property.
2.65, so there's 2.65 and 2.7 here, so there's 1.2 million, or no, $200,000 more. I'm bad at simple math, is that right? 2.7 minus 2.6, 100,000. So there's $100,000 more than our levy that we collect in the proposed general M&O fund.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious
And
where.
it's again, we're just putting that figure out there because I can't predict how much they're gonna pay us in taxes this year. So we're estimating on last year. So, but yeah, I can send you the list of what the breakdown is of all those taxes.
But if the levy of total amount is capped at
Should be-
2.65, then it should be 2.65 there, not 2.77.
There's a cap on the levy.
Yeah, we only ask for the 2.65. We don't do a percentage.
What about penalties? Did that in addition?
We do get, and there's some back taxes that come through too. So some of that can
Oh,
be
yes.
projected from the year prior.
Right.
We can get up as well.
People
Yeah,
actually
and I say,
pay
so
up.
I know that the levy is a max amount that we've asked for in terms of how they break down our
Mhm.
percentages, but more money comes in later when they collect more from people, either when taxes go up or when, like they have penalties or back
Yeah.
taxes and things like that.
So also the county is in charge of giving it, running through like the forest funds and some of those other dollars that come to us, and those will be counted now as well. But generally speaking, it would be late taxes and penalties from the prior year. So if we don't end up with all of those, let's say we get 2.45 million or whatever, and then, because that's pretty typical, And then the next year they'll put that on if we, we'll get it in a different month. So we project that.
The other spreadsheet.
Do you get any carryover from the taxes at all,
Do we get any carryover?
as far as not using it all?
Okay, so here's, for example, so our,
Well, except we had 2.4 in beginning balance, so we had significant carryover.
So
But it
that's our
sounds like
forest
this
funds,
money
is
is,
what you're looking at.
what, yeah,
That 2.4, that carryover, that's our forest funds and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, so that's not carryover, it's,
It's
That's our-
carryover in the
it-
sense that we
so that's our
didn't
fund
spend it last year,
balance.
so that's,
Okay.
yeah.
okay.
So we try to keep that there. And one of the things about fund balance, you have to,
And that is the Safe Routes to Schools forest money.
yes.
Okay.
But there's more to it than that. We have to have that money so we can pay out payroll because of our payment times.
Right.
So,
because of cash flow.
yeah, it's a cash flow. Anytime we'll be up to about 1.6 or 1.7 million dollars out the
Behind.
door. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we gotta have that to carry. Then when we get our taxes, we can fill back in.
It's amazing that we do as well as we do.
Yeah. It's a management thing on timing, and the state does a good job of getting, their payments are pretty good about that.
Timely and
Yeah.
whatever.
When it comes around December, if you look at our accounts are, I've seen them down as low as 300,000 in our, accounts. So, to have 2.2 million sitting there, it's not really the case. It's a cash flow thing.
Yeah,
So,
gotcha.
Yeah, because you would get your second property tax allocation until February.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that time
and that's a
of year
little
gets
bit
pretty
higher
tough.
this year. I mean, I didn't take money out of there. Well, I did for the buses. Like last year, it was $200,000 for
Mhm.
buses. This year, it was only 71,000
Right.
for us. So
Yeah, we cut down on that. We only got
Less.
one bus and we got a smaller one as well. So it just worked out to where we could have a little bit more savings on that. And that fluctuates. I mean, everything, you have to remember, you're looking at one snapshot in time for 1 year. And as you go through the big picture, I mean, there's a lot of things that will extend even higher this year and the next year maybe down or vice versa. Just like the buses are a really good example. We generally buy 2 buses, but last year we bought one because we didn't know the security of our income. So I'm like, hey, let's just buy one if we can get by. Well, just happened to be, it was a smaller bus that they needed at that time to replace. So they went with one that was a little cheaper. So that was helpful.
Is
But then
there
next
still
year
some
we do.
money we could use for transportation there if there was a need that came up?
Yeah, so basically what you guys are calling the forest funds or our fund balance is something we can use for anything. It's general fund money.
Gotcha.
We can use it for anything. But again, it's that kind of your savings account is what I would call it. Yeah. It's, you draw out of it when you need to, you put back into it when you can. So that's what we've tried to set it up that way. So yeah, generally, funding for buses, so we use our depreciation money for buses. So with our fleet, we get a depreciation payment every year, and we'll take that money and put it towards the buses, but we usually come up short. I mean, it's usually somewhere around 120,000, so we generally have to do 70 to 80,000 a year.
Just
for
bought a new
buses.
bus, didn't we?
Just one this year.
usually and in the past, we've alternated
Yeah.
one year to the next year. And so our budget
Yeah.
alternates for that. So we might have carryover for this year, but it's so that we can buy
Right.
2 buses next year.
Yeah.
And this was the year we budgeted for 2 buses. So we have extra going in
Yes.
for next year, and the budget shows less for next year,
Mhm.
but it's gonna have carryover from this year,
Right.
so we can buy 2 buses next year.
Right. It's all in the depreciation of the buses. And they do a
that's-
good job of managing that.
Excuse me, and that's in capital outlay?
It's part of the capital outlay,
Okay.
yes.
Just kind of going back to like the levy, I pulled up her spreadsheet that shows itemized things, and so, for example, the levy, we got last year 2.574 million, but then we also got a payment of 8,000, 102,000, another 8,000, $20, $700. So those all go into that final number that she's putting on there. But our general levy paid out 2,574,000
Right.
last year. So it wasn't even at the 2.65. And then it comes in with extra payments.
And is that something that got sent out? I
It's-
have that.
it's in- Yeah, there's a spreadsheet that has every itemized thing.
Because
It was on a more recent email, maybe earlier this week.
I have the 29th, it says the board budget. So I have that open. Okay,
It'd be nice.
revenues. Again,
Payment plan was nice and straightforward.
Yeah.
Here's your $2.6
Yeah.
million, but it doesn't work.
It seems like it, yeah.
So yeah, we actually
You're not
paid
to all of
that
them,
amount
that's
last
right.
year to start with, and then they added to
Yeah.
it, yeah. And so on the itemized one, you can see how money comes in very specific, like youth challenge, CARES Act. Well, that was just for last year, so it's not budgeted for next year.
I see that now, thank you. And so these dollar amounts that are revenue that don't have any kind of account description?
The ones at the top.
Yeah.
What does the number start with?
The account.
The account number,
They're the 200s, 220.
220, 231, 239, 241, 246, 425, 610, 710, 721.
Yeah, so those are listed out on these, on the budget form like this. They all say, so 220 is forest fund.
Okay.
231 is leader in me.
Okay.
233 is youth challenge. And we had discussed this, and if it's helpful to you guys, I could build just a little sheet for you guys that helps describe what each
That would
fund
be
is.
nice. That
Just so
would be
you can have a
helpful.
guide all the time
That would be
that tells you what they are.
That'd be great.
When
Yeah.
you send out the
Anything to
monthly
help us
budget,
understand.
is that on that monthly budget?
It has some descriptions on it, but it doesn't,
It doesn't have.
Yeah, the monthly budget, like I said, that's, if we want to talk about how that's to be built, how you guys want to see it, we can label it how needed and stuff. It's something we'll just have to kind of build separately. So,
And so like on this spreadsheet, that would probably be helpful, is if you could, I'm sure that you have names based on certain things,
If you
but
have
even if you had something on
this,
the end that kind of
has
described it,
so you can
yes,
look
in
through.
layman's terms.
well, we talked about summarizing by, the fund code, like the 100s or the 200s, just in general,
Mhm.
and trying to get that. But when you look at the 100s, that's like 100s of personnel, right?
100,
Or
so when it starts with the 100, that's all of our general fund.
right. So you have, within the 100,
Yeah,
sorry.
and then you
of
get over to
personnel.
the right, to the
Yeah.
further numbers, 100s are all
So we could-
salaries.
But if you're looking at like general fund, that fund's like a lot of different areas. So it's really a hard number for you to really see the details of it. It's like, hey, we spent this much out of general fund, but it could have went for people, fuel, transportation, PD, whatever, books. There's a million things, everything basically can come out of general fund. So not sure how you guys want to see that specifically. We were trying to figure that out and try to create a spreadsheet that would be a lot easier. But if you could see it. So one thing you have to keep in mind, we have to report basically by fund code, but also by building.
Mhm.
So if you see it by building, you're going to see all the same codes in every single building we have.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean, so to get a total, you'd have to add all those up. Used to, they didn't have us break it down by building.
Mhm.
But even before, when I first got here, it was just done by code, basically. And then the law changed and we have to do it by building. So now we have to account for every expense in every building, whether it's maintenance or, food service or technology or whatever it might be, all has to be coded towards a particular building. So we have all this stuff that's broken down. So when we're building a budget, that's where it becomes very convoluted and complex. So for example, like a Title I, federal money for a Title I, and we break it down into, Title I paras or Title I supplies or whatever it might be, those are federal monies. But then you have to divide that into which building goes, who is it basically? So we have, 4 Title I paras at Orofino Elementary School, and we have 3 at Timberline Elementary. Then we have to get those coded out from a single funding source.
So do you budget them according to building, correct?
Yes.
So it would be really cool in my mind to have so you have the gross revenue, and then you would have expenditure columns by building, and then it wouldn't have to have a dollar amount, but it would be percent remaining. That would be really interesting. So
We talked about that, but part of the problem is some of the things are across the district. So some of the expenses, for example, programs office, district office, those are all across the district.
you have a district
Expenses.
column and each of the school column. where you would
Yeah.
have percent remaining, right?
I mean, we can definitely explore and try
does
to,
that
yeah,
make
because I,
sense?
yeah, I'd like to refine it to where it makes sense to everybody. Absolutely, that's a great start. I'm not sure on, when we get through that, that's going to pan out as well as you might think. It's not quite that good.
How much flexibility do we have for budget modification at the end? Or so as an example, say we have something come up in a building
Mhm.
where it's all of a sudden it's an issue. And so we're dropping 80% of our funds. So we only have 20% left. Is there, but we have another school that hasn't had issues,
Mhm.
and therefore, do we have that ability to move funds?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
those kind of parts of the budget are actually district-wide.
Mhm.
They're not just per building. The salaries are per building, those kind of things, supplies are per
Mhm.
building, but when it comes to maintenance and operations, right?
And we still divide it by
Yeah, you
building.
do,
We have
but-
to, yeah. But
but
our
it
income is
doesn't-
not.
The income is not reliant on that. So
Right.
they don't pay out and say, this is money for Timberline for the
Right.
buildings. They say, this is money for the district for buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And they divide it out
Mhm.
at the beginning of the year, but it can shift through the year.
Yeah.
So we're not liable.
It's the same thing, and you guys are familiar with this as we go through with the teachers, with our, salary-based apportionment. We get, for the district, basically, let's not talk about IDYCA and how that works, but we get a lump sum for the district, and then we portion that out to where the teachers are, Teacher works at Orofino High School or Timberline High School, that's the same. So yeah, there's a lot of, so our income sources are minimal compared to our expense accounts.
Right.
Our revenue accounts are very small. But then you have to disseminate that out everywhere else. It's just like what you do at home, if you think about it. You get a paycheck and then you spend it on groceries, light bill, gas, blah, 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 everything else that you do. It has to get divided up. So, and then that's how we have to report that. So.
But the idea of dividing it up by building, I had actually mentioned that
Mhm.
yesterday,
Yeah.
saying, okay, so this is Orofino Junior Senior High School. This is what we budgeted for them. This is what they're paying out on salaries, benefits, IT, transportation, those kind of things. And then, buildings and operations, but if we had to shift some, we're able to do that, but we kind of see what we
Right.
allotted for each building.
And that's the report we were just looking at, that it had all the details. It was like 140 pages long.
Yeah.
But it's broken down like that basically, but has all the details within it. So we were looking at a way of summarizing
How do you
that.
lump that?
Yeah,
And
and Skyward is not real conducive to making new reports like that at this point. So we'll get there.
And the one that is the itemized one for expenses does that almost.
Mhm.
And my thought
Yeah.
was, well, if we had a summary
Yep.
at the end of each building, so it did itemize secondary salaries and benefits and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So if we had an itemized total at the end of that, and then we could see from year to year how that
Right.
shifts or how much more we spent than what we allotted.
Mhm. Nope, so we just talked about a lot of those things this morning.
The budget
We
is
searched through a lot of them.
so difficult, and year
Yes.
after year, always trying to
Yeah.
think of some more simpler ways, but then they also change how you have to
Yeah.
report it too, which then makes it more difficult.
Yeah, every year since I've been here, it's changed somewhat. Something's changed. And you throw these grants in on top of, what we could use them for, what we couldn't use them for, and then we couldn't use them. But it was, it's been a nightmare with that and tracking them. But she's done a good job of that. We're doing okay with it. So we'll continue to do that. Yeah.
So, sorry, one quick thing here. On this detail, what's the difference between the working and the original?
So looking at that kind of moving one.
It's the spreadsheet one.
The detailed spreadsheet? And I just switched to the
So
expenditure.
usually the original is what was the original set budget for last year, and working is what's actually happened.
Oh, 2021, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it now. I see the dates. Okay.
Although the working one does say 21, 22.
Mhm.
So I assume
just
that was
noticed
your
that.
projected budget for next year.
I think it is.
Yeah.
See what spreadsheet you have.
I did the spreadsheet, he did some editing.
So 20, yeah, and I was just, yeah,
It's
the
the
words
word,
were
yeah.
cut off. So 21,
It's what it is.
22, that's
the
what we're,
proposed.
that's
Yep.
the
And then
proposed.
the 2021
And this is where we
yeah.
were. Okay.
Those are just the comparisons. So what I did with that is that we had a spreadsheet. She dumped all that in from Skyward, and I went out and removed all the zero pieces because you could see like this one, there's gobs of zeros and things that show up on accounts that we no longer use. and no longer charge things to, but to remove those out of there, that's something she's working on, is trying to figure out how to get those out of our system. Because when you do a full report, it shows you all those. And it went from, I can't remember how many lines, like 1,600 lines to what it is now, 400 or 600.
600.
Yeah, it was like 1,600 before, there was like 1,000 sets of zeros in there. And what happens is as those codes change, you know, and you get new people, they can have a little variance on how they can code things, but a lot of times those codes become obsolete.
So we're pulling for this year, we're pulling 500,000, 520,000 more of forest funds in, oh no, this is it. Yeah, revenue.
Point.
So we must have a stash of forest funds.
We do. That's part of the fund balance.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So that's, I think the terminology gets off on a lot of that. When we talk about forest funds, when the auditor talks about forest funds, they're talking about our fund balance. It's our savings account. It's that 2.4 million. Now there's pieces of that we add in there. It becomes a general fund. It's all general fund. It's our fund balance, what we have. But it was labeled somewhere back in time as forest funds. And what they used the forest funds for, there was enough there, they were doing big projects with it. It was like, this is our cash flow that we can do, whatever it might be.
It's back on the good old.
Yeah. And we're still getting, I think last year we got 283,000
Yeah,
or
it's
something
almost
like that. Yeah.
300,000. So we
So-
get new money that's put into it each year from the actual federal.
And
that's from the
funds,
Craig
but
Wyden.
The account itself is actually called forest funds.
Yes.
Yeah, even
Yes.
though it's a lot of other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that go into it. It's just that it's called the forest funds.
Is that where we're getting the money for the timberline deal?
No, that's actually, we're looking at.
That's
doing
the
that
ARPA
too.
money.
Yeah, that's our money. We're looking at doing that. Yeah.
But we didn't have that money yet.
No.
So where did the money come from that you have, that you were looking at? Yeah, you got a balance that you're working off. I mean,
Yeah. So our fund balance, yeah. So
So it's just the fund balance.
Yes.
So, yeah, because if we were able to get it done by August, we wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we had the money
Mhm.
to
And
pay
the
the
dough,
bill.
Correct.
I'm with you.
And then it would have got reimbursed later when we got that.
Right.
Then you replenish yourself.
Federal funds.
Right.
This is a cash flow deal.
Yep. Yeah, it's always
Back
a
to
cash flow.
Yeah, that's probably true.
We never see any money, we just see a lot of numbers.
I say, so for example, we probably, let's say, you know, we decided, oh, we wanted that $1.4 million project or whatever, and they're gonna do it by August. We probably would not have the cash flow to do that and continue to pay salaries in the summer.
Oh, wow.
Does that make sense? So we don't have any more money coming in until, I don't know when.
We just had our July.
Well, July, you should have got in
Oh,
June, yeah.
But then we won't have any more coming in.
February.
For
No,
6 months.
we have an August payment.
Oh, you have August.
What percentage of our budget is for salaries and all that stuff?
Oh, well, look on
It's
the,
the majority of it,
Yeah.
it's like 80% of it.
I think it's like 83,
where's the
82,
summary?
3%. I'd have to look. for sure.
Yeah.
It's usually, generally, if you look at benefits as well, it's usually around 85%.
85%.
80 to 85%.
Including everything.
Yeah, that's every,
Salaries
yeah.
and benefits, 2 million, Greg out of 6.
So taking care of people.
Yeah. Well, there's benefits and stuff in there too. We have all those.
Yeah,
together.
1.3 in salaries and 645 and
Yeah, there you
And you know, that doesn't count some of our other
oh no, it's so.
fund.
go.
Okay,
That
so
doesn't
much higher.
include
Why-
insurance.
So these two, yeah, it did. So these two tables are in the summary are really throwing me off. So there's the M and O fund, so that's 6 million in salaries and 2.5 in benefits. But then over here on other funds, it's 1.3
Well, here we go.
in salary and 645. So we add all of that together.
Right, those two.
Okay.
Could be like
Yeah.
9.5 on the left or 8.6 on the
Right,
left side,
yeah.
plus another 2 on the right side. So that's 10.6.
Out of 16. So these are, okay, I was,
And that's just salaries and benefits.
right. So it's 65%,
Yeah.
65%.
65%? It's not 85. I thought 85%.
So there's only 2 salaries and benefits, so, so this.
We have quite a few other things that we spend.
I'm just terrible at simple math.
Well,
So if we round,
You figure 65 or 85?
so it's 85% of our state funding, which is where we get all of our salary benefits.
You're picky.
But it's, yeah, well, our other funding is not,
Yes.
it's all earmarked for particular things, but not salaries and benefits.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
if you do like your title, paras, those type of things can go in there as well, but everything else is earmarked to not be salaries and benefits.
So it's not 9.74 million, but with
Yeah,
rounding
which
up and
is-
down,
Yeah, we
which
get
is,
like 10 and a
so-
half from the state, so.
and then,
yeah.
so 10, 6, 6, 7
understand.
equals.
Yeah.
And then you have
'Cause it is a-
professional development and
Yeah.
actually
Yep.
expenses, travel expenses, I mean, it does add up.
You bet.
Yeah, so like our state funding's around 10 and a half, what is it, 10 something million? Whenever you add all those up. what's the total state?
O&M over here, 10.7,
Yeah,
and then we're over here in the other, 6.69.
so that, the other includes federal programs, all those different things add up to local
So-
taxes, all that.
So I would love a cheat sheet that showed what is the revenue in the general M&O, and then what is the revenue in alt there? Just so I can understand that
Okay, so just like
clearly.
what this is showing here. That sheet they have, because this is your
Yeah.
revenue for general, and then this is all the others.
Yep, so what are the, what makes up those in the
Oh,
codes?
what makes them up?
What makes them up in the codes,
Mhm.
and then I can go and then I can understand that a little bit better. That would be helpful for me.
It'll take you some time.
And it will help us
That's a
pitch
lot.
to the community
Absolutely.
because it'll show the spaghetti or the minestrone soup or.
Pretty sure you just said spaghetti. Was making sure that's what I heard.
Yeah.
It's Italian. How do you-
I got it.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about it.
Covered with a secret sauce
Secrets.
with big old meatball bombs.
My last question, based on the itemized one, is that it looks like we have an increase in revenue for next year
Mhm.
on our budget.
Yep.
I want to say it was like 550,000.
Something like that, yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, I even saw that in this
Oh, no,
one.
it's actually, so it's a 250,000 increased revenue, but yet the expenses is an increase of, I think, 550. So,
Because we had that extra in the beginning balance.
so that's where the extra money's gonna come from.
I believe so. When I look at this and the beginning balance difference, that would tell that story.
Right.
So that carried over from actually 2 years ago when we didn't spend as much. We're gonna
Right.
use that this next year.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, and as we look, keep in mind like some of this ESSER money and that type of stuff, I mean, we'll get that out there and we'll take some public input and stuff on that as well on that 900,000. I mean, I know where we're kind of headed with that, but that is not figured in there.
Right.
So that for next year. Not something we want to depend on, obviously. As we go through, that's something as we go through, negotiations and some of those other things, we have to really keep in mind the whole picture of, we're looking at a deficit budget this year based on some of the extra we had last year. So, and I'm very willing to do that, to put that out to our employees because they did have to stay stable for a year. Basically, we gave them some of those stipends, but to get everybody back where they need to be. And then next year we reevaluate that again. And, we absorbed the cost of the insurance increase, which was 63,000, I think, or something like that.
Can I stop you there and
Yeah.
explain the deficit? So that's why we brought in more reserves, because we had the deficit to cover the deficit? Because this shows balance.
It does show balance, but here's the transfer in of 215,900. I can't see it from here. 214,900.
Yeah, the transfer.
Yeah.
421.11.
No, that's not the one. There is, where's that? These transfers some of these are standard transfers it's included in that. Yeah, it's right here. This one, this 214,996. This one are standard things that we budget. This is the deficit. This includes things like our food service every year. So think about like our food service, we try to have it as self-sustaining item itself.
Sure.
They come up short every year because our expenses are greater than what their income is.
Mhm.
So that's added into there. The bus sales or bus transfer, so those are transfers from general fund to cover some of our standard operating procedures. That makes sense. So we're always short every year. Those are probably the two main ones that I see. And if I just should go get an audit and look, so you can see it. As you go through that, it shows where our transfers go to. But that was really, I think our special ed department had to transfer into it as well. Medicaid is one of them we have to transfer in.
And that would be in the other.
And that comes into here.
Okay,
It's the difference between that and that is what we transfer, that we automatically transfer every year. Not
Okay.
automatically, but we plan on transferring it every year. The 215 is what we didn't plan on transferring. That makes sense.
The statement that the difference between them does
Mhm.
not, because
Okay, so-
this was needed to cover
Yeah, so this
basic operations.
is everything, but some of these are pretty standard. Like I said, if you take, like
But that-
90,000 to food service and 100,000 to the bus, and those things are all included in this.
Okay, so that.
Yeah. Then you take
This,
those off.
this is everything.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And this is just basic education.
Yep.
And this is programs, special programs.
That's,
That's what I'm trying to figure out what's the,
yeah, well, so whenever you look at like your general O&M, these are operational. So this is all your services that,
basic education.
Yes.
Have buildings, have people,
Yep.
teachers in them to,
this is what the state says, this is what you need
Right.
to operate.
to get that
This
part.
is all the other pieces of it. Federal programs, everything else is all included in this. This is like your bare bones school.
Okay.
And the
Yeah,
state said,
that's
we're
what the
gonna,
state allocates.
yes,
And that's the-
they
the
allocate
state
for us.
says.
We
Yep.
can do more. We have
Mhm.
more teachers, we have more FTEs,
Right.
we have,
And just because if you're gonna operate a school, I mean, if you took all this away, you're gonna have very bare bones,
Right.
teachers. So that's about it,
Mhm.
some supplies and operational type things, but when you're doing everything else, and that's where that all comes into.
Right, so, but these numbers are unique. They're
Mhm.
not connected.
They are connected because this lies within this. So you would have to
But-
take the 215,000 out of this. So we're short
But these-
215,000.
But these don't lie within these, so why does this lie within that? They're unique.
What does it now?
These are unique. These are all unique numbers and these are unique numbers. To get totals, we add them together.
Okay,
So they're not
so
unique.
this one,
Or they are unique.
yes, you are correct in what you're saying. So
Okay.
this one is all these other transfers in that we typically do every year.
Yep, added,
Yes.
more transfers.
This one is an addition to
cover our
that. You're
ass.
right. It's not within, it's
Okay,
addition to.
all right.
Yep,
That's
you are
why,
correct.
thank you.
exclusive.
Exclusive. Yep. Good terminology.
It's like what the state gives us and what we allocate for, which we still run low at
Yep.
the end of the year. And then what we budgeted for with our levy and our other
Right.
revenue. with the
Federal and all
expenses.
those. Yes.
That is hugely helpful. Thank
Yep.
you. I get it.
Got it.
Okay. And all of this will help us make the pitch to our constituency to vote yes on the levy.
Mhm.
Yeah, isn't that levy one way?
Right, I see that. Yeah.
We rely on that,
Mhm.
even just for salaries.
Even as it comes down as a less and less percentage, it's still a pretty big piece.
Yeah, and I think we need to keep in mind when you talk levies too, the whole dynamic of the taxpayers is changing.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'll have that data for us when it comes time.
It's becoming a smaller and smaller piece of it, right?
The,
It is, but it's still a big chunk, 2.6 million is roughly is
Weren't you telling me back in Missouri that the local districts
local.
raised all their money?
Yeah.
There was.
It was the inverse of what we do in Idaho.
Yeah.
We did, like we get basically roughly, 65, 70% from the state. It was the opposite. 65 to 70% from the local, and we had to do it annually.
So the taxes would be much higher
Mhm.
in that case.
Yeah, most tax levies there, the average in the state was somewhere around 7%.
It does give the district a lot more control on what they can do.
Yeah.
That kind of situation.
Yep.
It's just more expensive.
Yeah.
Local.
It does make you understand how when like counties or cities don't pass their levies, what happens.
Yeah, especially in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, just a comparison, next year, we're gonna spend about 2.2 million on just insurance alone for our employees.
That's a lot of our levy.
That's a lot. I mean, it's not what all goes to it. That's just a comparison. That's what it costs us every year.
That's a good way to look at it though.
Because our benefits would be tough to handle if we didn't have a levy.
And people would not want teachers to go without health
No.
insurance, for example.
No, and that's, I think that those are things that we just need to be
Talk about that.
aware of. And one of the things they always told us is when you're talking about levies, you don't talk about how much goes to personnel because
Right.
nobody wants to pay taxes to pay somebody.
Yeah,
But it's the truth of it. I mean, it's the truth of the matter is some of it does. I mean, it has to cover some of the
it makes it
ends.
personal.
It does. And
Everybody
generally
loves
people
teachers.
want to see, projects. They want to see a building improved.
Yeah.
They want to see, whatever it might be that's tangible that they can, but they typically don't want to do that. And I'd like to see that mentality change.
Yes, that
Sure.
needs to change.
Yeah.
Our teachers are what make it.
Right.
They also don't want to see falling down buildings.
No,
No, that's true.
right.
Broke down buses and.
I always said you can teach kids anywhere, but you can't find teachers everywhere.
Amen.
Think about that one.
Well
You can teach
said.
out on the lawn if you needed to.
Yeah.
Not ideal. It's the people that are behind it that are the ones that count, so.
It's been done before.
It has. Yes.
Unfortunately.
It's not something we want to do.
It's like my classes would not do it.
Wouldn't be anywhere today or this week. It'd be a terrible week to be teaching out on the lawn.
Well, thank you for your patience with me. I understand it a
No,
lot better
it's-
now.
No, and we want, we need to have these discussions more often. I said that earlier. I said, we need to be able to have a financial discussion, intelligent, intellectual conversation. But it's hard for you guys to come here every 30 days or every 2 weeks and get a grip on it. We do it full time and it's still hard to get a grip on it. I don't know why.
It's taken me a year to actually.
Yeah.
It's a big process.
Yeah,
I can't imagine trying to do that.
it's pretty daunting. It's very daunting. And to make it all come out to where, we can operate. And then what happens is, somebody's always not going to be unhappy because they're either not going to get the raise they wanted or they're not going to get, the repair they wanted on that because there's always a place that we just can't make it work.
Well, and unlike a business where you have people that do accounts payable.
Mhm.
people that-
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
There she is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Jack of all
definitely been-
trades.
It's been challenging definitely having 3 different business managers, and no offense, she's doing a great job. I'm not saying that, but it's been challenging because every time we get our feet under us, we go back. And so it's hard for me to grow as well because, I'm going back to the basics again, which is great. I have a good understanding of how things are working, but it's a big process and everybody wants to do it in their own way. There's little pieces they can all build on their own. So
So
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and I did confirm yesterday that the accountant is working on this with them as well.
Yeah,
So the
so-
accountant has reviewed the budget and.
we have.
That's good. That's a good point.
Yep.
He
So-
hears from me more than he wants to,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's good.
But use them, definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that's changed a little bit as well. Since that's changed, so Phil was doing most of that, which was a whole different approach than what Tom was doing. So it's a little different, but I mean,
Oh,
there's
you're
still.
having a different.
No, it's the
accountant
same
working-
company,
Same company, but
but
different.
Phil's
accountant.
retired basically.
Oh, got
So,
it.
yeah,
So Tom and I were new at the same time.
yeah.
Oh, no.
So there was a lot of that.
Good and bad.
So our audit should be interesting this year.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
and he did it
He-
mostly
he led it
last
this
year.
year. Yeah, but with a lot of, I think, of Phil's
Mhm.
guidance, but.
So Phil was one of those, you could just call or email and he'd write on it. You have to do this or whatever. Well, Tom's kind of more delayed, like, well, I need to think about this and I'll get back to you, and then it's next thing you know, we're 3 days later and we're like, come on, we need
Forgot
this.
what I asked.
Yeah, we've already moved forward. So, I mean, not saying that they're not helpful. It's just there's a learning curve there too. So,
Yeah.
but they've been doing it for a
I
while.
didn't
So.
realize Phil wasn't there to help you guys.
Yeah, just last year, he was doing a little part, when they did the audit last year, he was involved enough to say, yeah, don't do that way, do it this way, kind of help train. And then I think he kind of stepped back at the beginning of the school, not the school year, beginning of the calendar year, I think. So.
Good. Any other questions? Angie says she's good. She reviewed.
You have
it.
comments, questions?
I had a question, but I think you sort of answered it.
Sort of, okay. What's a hearing? So you have the
I was
opportunity.
gonna say, my question was gonna be, when were the ESER things going to be scheduled?
I don't have that scheduled yet, but that's something probably, I'm gonna try to take some of July off if I can. So it'll probably be early August if I can. And I'll probably do some of those. I was just thinking about that the other day through my superintendent advisory group will be one. Of course, we'll talk about it at board meetings as well, but I'm gonna try to get up to the Weite Pierce area as well. If I can get maybe to the library or something.
Do some public meetings.
Yeah, just talk about, get input for some of those ESSER funds as well, and talk about what we're thinking about doing with them as well to kind of
That's good.
propose that. I think it's that we're required to do that, but also just the transparency of having those discussions, I think is important. Because a lot of, the common public's gonna say, oh, you got $1 million, $1.1 million this year. Yeah, how come we're worried about that, so we need to make sure it's a one-time shot. We want to make sure we use it for something that's going to stay with us. And I think it's just good to explain that. It's a really good time to kind of start talking about our levy as well.
Mhm.
It's hard because it's like, oh, we're getting all this money, but we're going to ask for more. So they just need to understand that this is a one-time thing that we can utilize for some good for the district.
So quick
Did I answer? I didn't know the
update,
answer, but I kind of did. Yeah, best I could.
quick update on Empire Mill. They have shut down Weite because the planer can't keep up. So I am not pestering right now. I'm gonna give them a week. And then I'll circle back around with Mike at the mill. And I've got meetings with contractors that'll be arranged late next week, early the week before that. So still moving forward with trying to figure out a cost-effective timberline solution.
And as we go into that, if you want to have, I can say also.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
No, that's
even look at
okay.
the agenda.
No, that's okay. Potlatch contacted me. I just want to let you know that, and
Okay.
they're willing to contribute.
Good.
So
Yeah.
they said right up front they would do a $20,000 donation to help us out.
Wow.
We needed right off the bat.
That's
So,
pretty nice.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Cool. It's working.
and they said even if it was to help out with our situation this year at that school,
Mhm.
to something we yes,
Which is what we're gonna have to,
yes.
Yeah.
So
just having a foundation,
right,
which is.
teach outside. Come on, we just talked about that.
Which would be fine in August and September.
Yeah, October will be fine.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Range,
part about
November.
today would suck.
Yeah,
So.
no school today. I canceled it, just so you know, it's too hot.
Give somebody with a palm.
Some grapes too.
Yeah,
Come on.
grapes.
Yeah.
Could be good.
Had some really great wine in North Carolina.
Did that? You've been there and back already.
Yes, been there and back.
Cool.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So also a real quick update, I know we're still in the budget hearing here, but just this kind of helps with this as well. We're looking at, we're in the process of Vista is looking at leasing our entire programs office area, building and all, that whole, not the bus garage, but that whole area. And I think we haven't met an agreement yet. We just met yesterday and we're gonna meet not next week, but next Tuesday. And I think what we're gonna get for lease for that will help us pay for a lease elsewhere.
So which part of
You wanna
it?
move out into a
The
big,
programs office where that
Yeah.
flat area that's fenced in,
yeah,
Oh, just the land or the building itself?
both.
So they would move out and you guys,
No, we're not gonna move. Yes, those, our programs people would move out.
and
Yes.
Avista
Them
would
too.
take over and lease it from the district?
Yes,
And then their payment for the lease would help us move into someplace.
yes, with everybody together.
have you got some place in mind?
Yes. I don't know if I'm supposed to disclose that yet.
Well, maybe not, but just,
Not a secret, but yeah, we're working with
because there
that.
isn't that much available. It's part of the
Right.
problem.
I was gonna say that you had mentioned like the old Chinese restaurant next to the Mexican restaurant. It
Yeah.
actually has a for rent sign in the window, but I just noticed that last week.
The building needs to be torn down.
That's just where we want to go.
I just remember Angie saying something that, oh no, the owner would rent it, and then
Yeah.
there was like a for rent sign. Oh my gosh.
You could get chop suey with it.
Yeah.
It would be great. His mom is fun
Mexican
reselling
restaurant.
things and it would be great if they would offer that for sale, but,
So I will tell you, I guess, when we're in a public meeting, it can go out, I don't care, but it's fine. It's, right next to, it's the old workout place right next to, yeah, right next to
Oh.
Barney's.
Oh,
Down on Riverside. It's a good facility. It's wide open. It would be a good location for us. There's 4,200 square feet that would accommodate. It's not going to take much to really fix it like we would need it. There's a built-in conference room, but it's pretty good location. So I'm working with the owner of the lease company on that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, and they're understanding what we're doing as well. And I've talked to them. I mean, I've been open with all of them. Vista, it's going to have to come out just right or we're not.
Would you have enough money coming in from this?
I think so.
For that?
I think so. What we're looking at, I just talked to Russell, he's looking at the facilities as far as internet access and those type of things. That was a little pricey, so we're trying to figure out what we can do with that.
Well, good,
I
that's a
think it might
good
be a good
development.
fit. It is a very positive thing. We should know in the next couple of weeks, whether we can do that or not.
Because
So,
that was a deal you were all
Yep.
gonna have to kind of cram together.
Yep, I've been working pretty hard on that one, and, like I said, I met with the Vista and the big boys at the Vista yesterday. We did a conference call right here, and
Awesome.
they were gonna take it on up the chain and let us know. So we're doing a proposal, and they're wanting the space.
Thought maybe they were gonna trade this for that.
No. Only downfall is we're not gonna see, storage for food. It's gonna be something we were trying to figure out as well, so.
Might have to
Don't want
rent a
space for
storage
that.
space or something.
I think we're gonna be able, I've been working with Ms. Pomponio on space over there and also with Mr. Hunter up there. So those are two areas we're trying to figure out classrooms and all that. So they've been working hard on that as well. And I think we've about got that resolved. So I think we'll be fine. Just rearranging some things. So making it work, making it work for a year. That's what we do.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
And that building got CAF2 fiber 3 years ago, so
That's what Russell was saying
that was a CAF2 build that they
Yeah.
did right away, so.
Did they
Russell,
leave workout equipment in there for you guys?
no, no, but the thing that has to be changed, believe it or not, are all the outlets are up. But I guess they used to have monitors all around.
Oh, yeah,
in
they had
there, but yeah, so that'll all have to plug in your computer up there. We're not sure everybody can reach them, but yeah. Yeah, but it's all kind of an open concept. I mean, the heating,
Yeah.
we probably do a few offices, but mostly cubicles.
Mhm.
Roof
You know.
leaks.
Does it?
Yeah.
I didn't see any spots in there, but all right, we'll find out.
Just saying, the
Yeah.
snap was still open.
Okay. Good to know. Well, I talked to the owner of it and he was pretty easy to work with. I think he's gonna be good to work with. It's been
Good.
sitting empty for a while, so.
Yeah,
Mike is a
great.
better communicator than his dad was.
Yeah, sounds good.
And they're looking at investing in the Orofino property more, so.
Well, there's also a good tax write-off for people if they want to help us out and donate to the school.
Yeah.
That was just a quick update. And that has to do with budget too. Hopefully that's a zero
Yeah.
changeover.
Yeah, that would be good.
That'd be perfect.
Great.
Fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
That's gotta happen soon.
Yeah. Yeah, they're letting us stay here and work with us, but ultimately they're wanting to get in here. Want to take it back, so.
Have your office under the bridge here.
Yeah. Be pretty hot.
Yeah.
It'll be soaking that way
Homeless.
from the water.
Yeah, we looked at a number of auctions
Mhm.
in town, so.
And there's others we can fall back on, but I think this one might come through for everything we were looking at, so.
All right, cool.
All right, so should we move on to action items?
Yeah, if we're done with the hearing, anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns,
helpful.
anybody anywhere? That's what it's for. Then we just call our regular meeting, so the hearing
Okay,
will be
so
over and we'll.
I'll call our special meeting to order.
Okay.
And then the first action item is the fiscal year 22 budget.
So I'll move that we accept the proposed 21-22 budget.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the fiscal year 21-22 budget. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Angie, I don't know if we can take this or not, says, in case I lose service, I vote to approve the budget as advertised. Don't know if she's still on there or not. She sent that a few minutes ago. But just so it's a matter of record, I suppose.
So you guys, so they speak the language, we're moved into FY 22, this fiscal year 22. Just so you know, it's always the end of the year. That's what you guys talking about.
It's because it's fiscal year as
Yes.
opposed
Yes,
to school year.
right.
That's the difference.
And it
We're
always,
not used to talking about school year.
yeah, it's always when it ends and when you do your audit is what they call that fiscal year. So fiscal year 22, which is when it will end and then we do our audit.
And the year is
The year is,
July 1?
yes, July 1 to June 30.
Happy New
Yes.
Year.
Yes, yesterday, we celebrated. Year 5. I'm in it.
Wow,
I know, right? That's what I thought.
last year qualifies for about 3 though, this.
7, 17, I think we said. Several.
So the second action item is the negotiated agreement, which
Did they agree,
I don't know.
taking that sentence out?
we have not seen a ratified agreement, so we are not going to. And as soon as they ratify it, we can do a quick vote to approve.
Wasn't there a timeline associated with that?
Well, there's a timeline recommended by the state, but we're past that.
Okay.
And ideally, I don't know,
Because of that allocation from them, we didn't know what we had.
What if perchance, I had a question, what if perchance it doesn't get passed or approved or whatever? Where are what happens if it doesn't get ratified?
so the
Did they just
negotiations
stay
have to
where they were
resume.
at? But we go into another, let's say we start into another school year without a,
So they're not, since I've been here, that hasn't happened here, but I've heard
Okay.
of other districts where they did not have a negotiated agreement or
Right.
contract by the beginning of the school year.
Right.
And so the teachers had a choice to either come back to work or weren't on contract, they were still getting paid, but you know, it's very sticky. And
I bet.
I think most of the time, teachers show up, they teach their kids, and they start putting pressure on the negotiations committee to make an agreement.
so my question was, do you pay them at the same level they were at?
We just approved the budget, so we'll be paying them what we. Yeah,
I see.
And already.
That whether they
Yeah.
ratify or
And
not.
I agree with that. We're gonna,
Oh,
pay forward
yeah,
with that.
well, good, well, that solves the problem.
Yeah.
Was my whole
Yeah.
concern.
It'd just be without an agreement. And
Oh.
contracts are pending the agreement.
Mhm.
Teachers have already been told and we've approved
Right.
their placement for next year and even their salary increases for
Yeah.
next year.
Yep.
But it just isn't on contract.
It's just unilaterally offered at this point. Gotcha.
Hopefully it's maybe just a matter of people being on vacation and not taking it time or something. That's gonna be my assumption. And then the last one,
So
Timberline classroom building.
Yeah, so I talked with Jerry, our architect, and he was actually gonna call in here, but I guess he didn't. But we were looking at, so he worked with the contractor that put in the proposal, the bid before. And I think I'd sent you guys that, he said that they could do the concrete work and all the conduit, all that stuff, basically all the prep work and everything done, ready to build on top, bring in electricians. For, I think it was like 450. Yeah.
Something.
450,000. So what I talked to him about yesterday and today, we had a little conversation. I said, look, we've rejected that bid, and I'm correct in saying that, right? They did not meet our terms, so we could,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I said, what we would need to do is we would vote today, or you guys would vote today, whether you want to reopen that for just that portion of it, just the site work, the prep work, the concrete, everything ready to go to build on top of. If we want to do that, we would put out bids again, a couple of contractors interested in that portion of it to do this year.
Jerry didn't like that though, for some reason. Do you remember what that was all about?
He was
He
concerned
changed
about.
his mind.
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
And
he
he was
did?
concerned about the concrete being there, pushing snow and stuff like that, being
Right?
vulnerable. So since then, he had said, it'd be good to get a good start. And also we can put barriers around those, and just really watch what we're doing with the snow. I mean, there's not really a big snow load coming off on it. It's just what's going to fall because there's no roofs that exit onto it. So that would be something we would consider for sure.
What are we gonna do in the meantime?
They're in those temporary trailers.
So
We can't do anything better than that for you.
So in the meantime, and I just talked to Mr. Hunter, and he's actually gone this week, but the week prior we had talked, and so the double wide that they were using this spring, we've got secured for next year. We just talked about that for the 4th and 5th grade. So they'll be out to where they are currently. The single wide trailer, which was our intervention trailer, title trailer, whatever,
Right.
we've moved it around next to the other one.
Oh, yeah. on the
Yeah,
north side.
so, and I've talked to Clearwater Homes, they're gonna help us level it, set it, get everything legal, hooking up electricity, internet, all that stuff, so we have that. Internally, we talked about changing some rooms around, and Mr. Hunter said, I'd prefer not to change anything at this point to disrupt anymore, so leave everybody where they're at. And basically, we had one teacher last year who had 1.5 rooms, and we've added an FTE up there, so we're going to share that a little bit around. Used to be a computer lab, or still is a computer lab. It's a smaller room, so there'll be some smaller classes in there. So it'll work out, I think. There's got to be a little bit of maneuvering. It's not ideal, but it's very doable.
Is there any way we put some more windows in some of those temporary buildings? It's got a little tiny window.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And it's dingy in there.
The other ones only had one in them as well,
Yeah.
Why don't
believe it or
we
not.
put some windows in
They had one
there?
right in the front. On each one of those, there's only one window in each of them, just exactly like that.
So where is Jerry in relationship to getting state electrical and plumbing feedback?
So he submitted his plans, and he was waiting on the permit process. He had talked with them. He said that so far they were still hashing them over, but he didn't see any reason why it wasn't going to go through. He thought in a couple of weeks we would have those. is what
Okay.
they told him.
And then that gives me a week. And so what I would like to suggest is that we rebid the whole thing, but allow it to be separated so that we could choose. So we have the flexibility to choose if we want someone to just do the foundation work. But if we find someone that will do all of it, and then extend the timeline out, so that we reopen it with some caveats.
Mhm. And that's basically what he said we were looking at doing anyway. His idea was to do let out the base stuff, the concrete, the dirt work, all those pretty preliminary things, and then rerun the other piece of it in December. And
When things have slowed down.
Yeah. to bid it at an actual.
I think we'd get a better price you're doing that because of the conditions of the wintertime up there.
Right,
And doing that, you couldn't get it done then.
right.
Well, but then we're advertising
Yeah.
twice.
Yep.
If we wait a little bit longer, get the input from the permitting folks of what might need to be changed within the design, get that solid so that we know we have a solid permittable set of plans, and then put that out with a longer deadline for construction completion, and allow it to be bid with just the foundation piece or an entire package.
But are you gonna run into weather if we delay too much longer on that?
No, because we agreed that we wouldn't do anything until we had input on permitting,
Mhm.
because that could change the whole thing.
Yeah,
Sounds like that's,
and I don't think there will be any
We're talking
changes
about
in design.
A couple of weeks.
Yeah. He indicated, and that was earlier this week, he indicated in a couple of weeks, so I would assume, next week or the following, who knows, but.
Yeah.
you've got a couple contractors that are interested in
In the
bidding
concrete,
on that?
yeah, so the original contractor, we have another one that was interested in doing the concrete.
The price that you put like 450,000 or something, is that within our first
No.
budget? No. How much?
That's my concern. That's why I'd
No,
like
no,
to,
That was,
yeah.
absolutely, because I mean, why rush this work if we're still gonna pay twice as much
Right.
for it because doing it now instead of waiting until next spring?
I kind of agree with that.
And
If we're
I-
not gonna use it,
Yeah,
it's just gonna sit there.
that's true.
Yeah.
The difference is you can jump on it in the spring and get it done. You can definitely get it done by the time school starts next year.
Yeah, that's true.
If you don't, it's gonna be difficult and then a tight timeline.
But the
So we'll
other,
go into the next school year, not having, that's probably what I would have to say, that's the argument. Go ahead.
That's the
Sorry.
idea.
No, you're fine.
the other piece is that if we do get someone that will come in the whole package and they can get at least a roof on through the
Mhm.
winter, then they can work inside in the winter. But what we did was we put a August deadline for complete construction. And if we put our deadline for complete construction being,
Like August of next year.
or even,
next year.
something, yeah. I mean, I'd like to have a conversation with people, of what's realistic? What's a realistic timeframe? If we get if the bid is out at this time, when can you start and what is a realistic timeframe for that? And I'll be having those conversations next week. I just have to get past this big grant deadline of the 7th.
one day.
Yeah.
But if we hadn't tried, we, you know, you.
It's a
you
start.
wouldn't know. So
Right. No, it's definitely a
It was
start.
worth, it was worth a shot.
Oh,
Yep.
for sure. Yeah.
And our meeting is, our next meeting is the 19th, our regular meeting.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's what, 3 weeks?
So maybe.
Timing wise, it's good. We should have it on the agenda for
We
the
should
next
yeah.
meeting.
enough
I've already got it on, ready to go.
I'd like to see us improve those temporary
Can I
buildings.
say something before you adjourn?
That's true.
Well, I was just gonna say that would be unprecedented to have public input during a actual.
It's not an input, it was just to answer your previous action item on if we ratified or not,
Yeah,
as I'm the president of the
Oh.
association.
I'm sorry, well, then maybe at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Because we're just in the middle of this action item and we can't be jumping around. It's just the open meeting
Yep.
laws. So regarding this action item, then it sounds like there's kind of agreement to at least wait until the next regular
Table.
school board meeting.
Yeah.
And when we have more information and discuss our options.
yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay. Okay, and so that does end our
Thumbs
action
up.
items for today. And so,
I think we should go to that.
yeah, if you just wanted to make a statement.
Yeah.
Or,
We did vote to ratify, after we went back to the table last week, we did vote this week to ratify.
oh, we,
Oh,
Oh, good.
we did not receive any kind of documented confirmation of that.
I could send it in an email when I get home,
It's, I mean,
'Cause I-
please, we still
Yeah.
need that for the next
Yeah.
meeting, but it's gonna have to be done at the next meeting.
because I emailed Dr. Garrett and said we should know by Friday, and I didn't see a response like, hey, let me know by 11:45.
Yeah, I just had your email, said you'd let me know as soon as you had it done, and I didn't hear anything, so. That's okay.
So yes, we did vote to
Okay.
ratify, and I will
Awesome.
send
Good.
that's good.
Okay,
Good
so yeah,
deal.
if you could just get that in writing,
Yeah.
and then we'll put
Good
that
to
on the
hear.
agenda for next time.
Good. Just forward to me and I'll have it on the 19th, and I don't see any reason, why it would. Well, it's already passed the budget,
We're
so.
all ready.
Okay, cool.
Good deal.
Thank you.
I'm gonna,
Appreciate that.
any input for next meeting?
Yeah, the reason I was asking about transportation, not a big deal. I just like to talk about maybe adding another vehicle that could be more useful, or could be useful for different things. So,
Oh.
So I can expand just a little bit if you don't mind, just real quick. The next meeting, you also are going to have a surplus list.
Oh,
And we're going to try to call about 6 vehicles we have that are like
excellent.
not used. And any kind of proceeds towards that, that was something we were working towards, is getting another
Geez, I'm
vehicle.
way ahead of the curve here, aren't I?
Sorry, I'm not making it up. I have the list. Ben's already sent it to me. We already went through it. So
So are you thinking about getting a van or something like that?
we're trying to explore what would work best. You know, it kind of depends on our needs. If we have teachers we're sharing up and down the hill, or if we have, kids we have to take certain, it's just kind of depends. Because we're going to keep our better van. Our maintenance vehicles are all junk, but they only need to go to, Miller Supply and back. I mean, that's for the most part, are a little bit better in there. So, and we have driver's ed cars. So we have some other vehicles that are just really timed. They're just an expense. So,
Okay,
but yeah, great point. Yeah, so.
good.
See, we're all becoming a team. We're starting to think alike.
My God, miracle.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
That's
All right,
right.
so we're gonna adjourn the meeting.
Yep.
Did you have something else? Okay, good, we're adjourned.
Okay, cool.
Good.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
Very good meeting.
So
Oh.